My wedding was supposed to be perfect, and I spared no expense, over $32,000 to fly my family across the world to celebrate with me. But my joy quickly turned to heartbreak when my parents secretly shifted the plans. Instead of attending my ceremony, they chose to use the trip as a European holiday with my sister and her kids, leaving me betrayed and alone. Can you imagine receiving a text message from your own mother, just days before your wedding, that rips your heart out and leaves you shattered? A message that says, "You're not worth seeing in a wedding dress anyway. Have a nice life." That's exactly what happened to me, Sophia, at 32 years old, after I poured my entire heart, and $32,000, into a dream wedding, hoping it would finally, be enough to bridge the chasm with my family. For as long as I can remember, I, Sophia, felt like I was constantly battling for a sliver of my parents' affection. Growing up in a pretty modest neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it was never a secret that my younger sister, Heather, was the golden child, the favorite. Most parents try to at least pretend to hide their preferences, right? Not mine. Eleanor and Richard Hamilton wore their favoritism like a badge of honor, bright and gleaming for all to see. Heather's every tiny achievement was a cause for celebration, parties, gifts, effusive praise. My accomplishments? They just got this sort of obligatory nod, a dismissive flick of the wrist. It was like I was invisible, or worse, a constant reminder of something they didn't want. I'll never forget when I was 10. I won the regional spelling bee, beating kids 3 grades older than me. Can you imagine how proud I was? How I desperately wanted my parents to be proud of me? They skipped the ceremony. Why? Because Heather had a soccer practice they just couldn't miss. The principal, a kind man, actually had to drive me home. I walked through that door, clutching my shiny trophy, my chest bursting with a desperate hope, and my mother just looked at it and said, so casually, "Put that somewhere it won't collect dust." That same night, they took Heather out for ice cream. To celebrate her scoring a goal in practice. A practice goal. It felt like a punch to the gut, a betrayal of my small, 10-year-old heart. That pattern, that constant, crushing comparison, it just kept going, year after year, all through my adolescence. I worked myself to the bone, hoping that if I was academically brilliant, if I achieved enough, then they would finally see me, finally approve. By my junior year, I was top of my class, taking all the advanced placement courses, volunteering at the local hospital. Meanwhile, Heather was struggling to maintain AC average, but oh, she excelled at soccer. Guess which one made my parents absolutely beam with pride, talking about it to anyone who would listen? It wasn't me. It was never me. The real turning point, the moment I knew I had to escape, came during my senior year. College acceptance letters started rolling in. I got a full academic scholarship to Northwestern University, a huge, prestigious achievement, something that would save my parents thousands of dollars in tuition. I called them, trembling with anticipation, expecting, hoping for, some kind of celebration. But my father, Richard, just grunted. "Well, I guess that frees up money for Heather's soccer camps." The same week, they threw Heather this elaborate, over-the-top party for making the varsity team. Leaving for college wasn't just going to school, it was my sanctuary. It was my escape. Northwestern's campus became this incredible haven. A place where my achievements were actually recognized, where hard work felt truly rewarded. I thrived in the finance program, securing competitive internships every summer. I rarely went home. I found every excuse imaginable to stay on campus during breaks, or visit roommates. Anywhere but home. After graduation, I landed a position at a boutique investment firm in Chicago. I was working 80-hour weeks, just relentlessly proving myself, climbing that corporate ladder. While I was doing that, Heather dropped out of community college and moved back home. But by 27, I was headhunted by this prestigious firm in Manhattan, practically doubling my salary overnight. I finally bought my first apartment, a small but charming one-bedroom right in the financial district. By then, my relationship with my family had dwindled to these obligatory holiday calls and the occasional, stilted visit. Each time I went home, my parents would spend most of the visit updating me on Heather's life, who, by then, had married Marcus, her high school boyfriend, and already had 2 children. They lived in a house my parents had helped them purchase, just 3 blocks away. "When are you going to settle down, Sophia?" my mother would ask, every single time, her voice dripping with thinly veiled judgment. "Your biological clock is ticking." This, despite the fact that I was absolutely thriving in my career, traveling internationally, building wealth and independence. My life felt full, vibrant, and exactly what I wanted. But it wasn't what they wanted for me. Then I met Nathan. And the contrast between my family and his became so stark, so blindingly clear, it was like stepping from a shadowed room into the brilliant sunlight. I met Nathan at a charity gala for educational scholarships. He was incredibly handsome in his tailored suit, but what truly captivated me was his genuine interest in my career, my ambitions, my mind. Unlike so many previous dates who seemed intimidated by my success, Nathan celebrated it. He ran a successful architectural firm, specializing in sustainable design. He shared my work ethic and my ambition, but he also understood the crucial importance of balance. After 3 amazing months of dating, he invited me to his parents' anniversary celebration in Connecticut. Barbara and Thomas Anderson welcomed me with this warmth, this genuine, embracing affection that I had never, ever known from my own parents. Their home was filled with photos of Nathan and his accomplishments, alongside those of his 2 brothers. During dinner, they asked thoughtful, insightful questions about my work, and they actually listened to my answers. When I mentioned a recent project where I had saved a client millions, Barbara, Nathan's mother, raised her glass in a toast. "To Sophia," she said, her eyes twinkling. "Thank you for sharing your brilliance with our son." I nearly cried right there at the table. In one single dinner, Nathan's parents had shown more interest and pride in my accomplishments than mine had in 3 decades. Our relationship just flowed so naturally, so beautifully. Nathan supported every single one of my career milestones, attending company events, listening patiently when I needed to vent about difficult clients. And I cheered him on when his firm won a prestigious design award. After a year, we moved in together, combining our lives with such surprising ease, it felt like we'd always been together. Then came the proposal during a weekend getaway to Cape Cod. After a private dinner on the beach, Nathan got down on one knee, holding a vintage emerald ring. He remembered that I had once mentioned preferring colored stones to diamonds. "You're the most extraordinary woman I've ever met," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "I want to build a life worthy of your brilliance. Will you marry me?" Through happy tears, I just managed to whisper, "Yes." That night, my heart full, I called my parents, just hoping, that this news, this incredible milestone, might finally bridge that gaping chasm between us. "We're engaged," I announced when my mother answered. There was this long, awkward pause, and then she said, her voice flat, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Heather is expecting again?" It was clear then. Absolutely clear. Even this, my engagement, my happiness, wouldn't change anything in our relationship. But with Nathan by my side, and the warm, loving embrace of his family, I was determined. I would create the wedding of my dreams, with or without my parents' enthusiasm. Nathan and I initially considered a traditional wedding in New York, where most of our friends lived, or in Connecticut, near his family. But during a late-night conversation, we kept coming back to our first vacation together, 6 months into dating. We'd impulsively booked a trip to Maui, and those 10 days in Hawaii had been pure magic. From snorkeling with sea turtles to watching the sunrise from Haleakala volcano. We had walked along Kaanapali Beach, talking about our dreams for the future, the first time either of us had ever vocalized wanting marriage and family. "What if we got married in Maui?" I suggested, the idea forming, crystallizing as I spoke. "We could return to where we first talked about building a life together." Nathan's face just lit up. "That's perfect. We could have the ceremony on the beach at sunset." The very next day, I reached out to several wedding planners specializing in Hawaiian destination weddings. After video consultations with 3, we clicked instantly with Jasmine Kelly. Her warm personality and meticulous attention to detail really impressed us both. "A Maui wedding is absolutely magical," Jasmine assured us during our first planning call. "But be prepared for about 30% of your invited guests to decline due to travel constraints." That statistic actually, surprisingly, relieved me. While Nathan had a close-knit group of family and friends he wanted there, I was more selective. Outside of my college friends and work colleagues, the only family members I truly wanted there were my cousin Rachel and my Aunt Patricia, who had always shown me genuine affection when she wasn't estranged from my parents. However, social expectations, and Nathan's gentle encouragement, convinced me to include my immediate family in the plans. "They're still your parents, Sophia," Nathan said gently, his hand on my arm. "You might regret not having them there." With Jasmine's expert guidance, we secured a stunning oceanfront property for both the ceremony and reception. We set a date 10 months out, giving our guests ample time to arrange travel. The venue could accommodate up to 80 guests, which felt intimate yet sufficient. We spent weekends poring over color schemes, floral arrangements, menu options, music selections. Nathan and I were so aligned on most decisions, both of us preferring elegant simplicity over anything too ostentatious. We chose a palette of seafoam green, coral, and gold, reflecting the breathtaking natural beauty of the Hawaiian landscape. As our plans progressed, one concern kept nagging at me, a persistent worry: the cost for guests. Even with 10 months' notice, traveling to Hawaii required a significant financial commitment. While most of our friends had successful careers and could easily afford the trip, I worried about excluding people who, despite everything, were still important to me. My thoughts kept returning to my family. Despite our complicated, painful relationship, I couldn't imagine getting married without them there. Yet I knew that the cost of flights, accommodations, and time off work would be absolutely prohibitive for them, especially for my sister's family, with 3 young children. During a weekend visit to Nathan's parents, I confided my concerns while helping Barbara prepare dinner. "I don't want to sound pessimistic," I said, chopping vegetables, my voice tinged with a familiar weariness, "but I don't think my family will come. Hawaii is expensive, and they've never really prioritized my milestones." Barbara placed a gentle, reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Have you considered helping them with expenses? If it would mean having them there, it might be worth it." Later that night, I discussed the idea with Nathan. "What if I paid for my family's travel?" I proposed, my heart fluttering with a fragile hope. "First-class flights, resort accommodations, everything. They couldn't say no to that, right?" Nathan seemed hesitant, his brow furrowed. "That's incredibly generous, Sophia, but it would be several $1,000s. Are you sure?" I had received a substantial bonus that year, and had been saving diligently. The money was earmarked for a down payment on a future home, but this felt more important. It felt like my last chance. "I want to remove every possible excuse," I explained, my voice firming with resolve. "If I cover all expenses and they still don't come, at least I'll know I did absolutely everything possible." Nathan kissed my forehead, his support a balm to my anxious heart. "If this is important to you, I support it completely." With renewed determination, I worked with our travel agent, Leslie Freeman, to price out packages for my family. First-class flights from Milwaukee to Maui for my parents, Heather, Marcus, and their 3 children, plus 10 nights at the very same luxury resort where we were staying. It totaled just over $32,000. It was a staggering amount, yes, but my financial position made it feasible. I allowed myself to imagine my father walking me down the aisle, my mother helping with last-minute preparations, my nieces and nephew as flower girls and ring bearer. Maybe this grand gesture, this incredible gift, would finally bridge the chasm between us. Maybe they would finally see that I had built a successful life, a life worthy of their pride. With this powerful hope fueling me, I finalized all the bookings, arranging for welcome baskets in their rooms and private airport transfers. I wanted everything to be perfect. A dream vacation for them, and a chance for us to create truly positive family memories surrounding my wedding. As Jasmine helped us fine-tune every last detail, I found myself becoming genuinely, wildly excited about having my family there. I pictured introducing them to Nathan's warm, loving family, and imagined all those old, painful barriers just falling away as they all connected. Perhaps this wedding, this event, could heal old wounds and start a brand new, beautiful chapter in our relationship. With all the arrangements complete, all the deposits paid, I sent out formal invitations with handwritten notes explaining that all travel expenses had been completely taken care of, along with detailed itineraries. All they needed to do was show up with their suitcases and enjoy a luxury Hawaiian vacation, culminating in my wedding. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to truly hope that my wedding day would include the family I had always, desperately wanted. With everything booked and paid for, I decided to call my parents rather than wait for them to receive the invitations. I wanted to hear their reaction firsthand, to answer any questions they might have about the arrangements. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed their number one Sunday afternoon. My mother answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted, as always. "Hi, Mom. It's Sophia. Do you have a few minutes to talk? I have some exciting news." I heard my father grumbling loudly in the background about pausing his program. Richard, it's Sophia. My mother explained, as if that might not be sufficient reason to interrupt his viewing. Once I finally had their attention, I took a deep breath. Nathan and I have finalized our wedding plans. We're getting married in Maui, Hawaii in October. Hawaii? My mother echoed, her voice still a little flat. That's very far away, Sophia. I know, I acknowledged, trying to keep my excitement in check. Which is why I'm calling. I've actually arranged something special for the family. I explained carefully that I had booked and paid for first-class flights and luxury resort accommodations for all of them, including Heather's entire family. There was this moment of stunned, unbelievable silence before my father spoke. First class to Hawaii? That must have cost a fortune. I quickly downplayed the expense, not wanting to make them uncomfortable. I wanted to make it special. You'll have your own beachfront suite, and Heather's family will have a 2-bedroom villa. Everything's completely taken care of, including airport transfers and daily breakfast. Well, my mother said, her voice finally warming slightly. That's very generous of you, Sophia. My heart literally lifted at the sound of approval in her tone. For once, just once, I had done something right in their eyes. I need to tell Heather about this. My mother continued, her excitement clearly building now. Can I call her now? Of course, I said, a huge smile spreading across my face. I'll email everyone the full itineraries, but the dates are October 25th, with the wedding on the 28th. After hanging up, I felt this enormous weight lift from my shoulders. Their initial reaction had been more positive than I had dared to hope. Within an hour, I received enthusiastic text messages from Heather and Marcus, expressing disbelief and gratitude. OMG, Sophia! Heather wrote. First class to Hawaii. The kids are freaking out. Thank you. In the following weeks, our wedding plans continued to progress smoothly, beautifully. Jasmine secured our preferred vendors, including a renowned local chef for the reception dinner and a string quartet for the ceremony. Nathan and I finalized our vows and selected readings. I found my perfect dress, a sleek, modern gown with subtle beading that caught the light like sea foam. I regularly checked in with my family about their trip preparations. My mother mentioned shopping for resort wear, and Heather asked questions about activities for the children. My father even called once to ask about appropriate attire for a beach wedding. These small interactions, these tiny sparks, nourished my hope that the wedding might truly mark a turning point in our relationship. I sent them information about excursions they might enjoy in Maui, even offering to arrange and cover those as well. I wanted their experience to be absolutely flawless. But then, about 4 months before the wedding, I noticed a subtle, chilling shift in their communication. My parents became less responsive to texts and calls, often taking days to reply. When we did speak, they seemed vague about their preparations. Have you all applied for your passports? I asked during one call, knowing they hadn't traveled internationally before. We're working on it, my mother replied dismissively. There's plenty of time. Heather, who had been so enthusiastic initially, started mentioning potential conflicts. Marcus might have a work thing come up, she said vaguely when I called in July. But we're still planning to be there. A small, icy knot of anxiety began to form in my stomach, but I tried to dismiss it. They wouldn't miss my wedding. Not after I'd removed every possible obstacle. Perhaps they were just busy with summer activities and would refocus on wedding preparations as the date approached. Leslie, our travel agent, contacted me in August about confirming some crucial details for my family's bookings. She mentioned that she tried reaching my parents directly, as requested, but hadn't received any responses. It's important they complete the pre-arrival forms for the resort, she explained, her voice tinged with concern. And we should finalize any dietary restrictions for the flights. I assured her I would handle it, and immediately called my parents. My father answered, sounding unusually hurried. Dad, the travel agent needs some information from you guys. Can you call her back today? I'm heading out the door for golf, he replied, his voice impatient. Your mother handles that sort of thing. I'll tell her to call tomorrow. The next day passed with no contact from my mother. When I called again, the conversation felt strained, unnatural. We've been meaning to talk to you about the trip, my mother finally said, her voice heavy. Richard's having some issues with his back, and the long flight might be problematic. My heart sank. There are ways to make the flight more comfortable, I offered quickly, desperately. We could arrange for special accommodations, or break up the journey with an overnight in California. We'll figure something out, she said, not committing to anything. Heather's also concerned about Bella missing school. Bella, my oldest niece, was in 2nd grade. Missing a week of elementary school hardly seemed catastrophic, but I didn't argue. The resort has tutoring services for guests, I mentioned instead. And her teachers could provide assignments in advance. Each concern they raised, I addressed immediately, offering solutions, bending over backwards. Yet, their enthusiasm seemed to be inexplicably waning. The knot of anxiety in my stomach grew larger, tighter, colder. As September arrived, with the wedding just 6 weeks away, communication with my family became increasingly difficult. Calls went straight to voicemail. Texts received delayed, non-committal responses. Leslie, our travel agent, expressed growing concern about the unconfirmed travel details. Sophia, she said gently during a call, we'll need to finalize these arrangements within the next week, or we risk losing the reservations. That evening, I confided my worries to Nathan as we prepared dinner in our apartment. I'm starting to think they don't want to come, I admitted, blinking back tears as I chopped onions, the sting a painful echo of my internal ache. But why wouldn't they just tell me? Nathan wrapped his arms around me from behind, his presence a comforting anchor. Let's not jump to conclusions. They're probably just disorganized. Why don't you offer to help them complete the paperwork? I nodded, grateful for his optimistic, unwavering perspective. The next day, I sent a comprehensive email, detailing exactly what needed to be done and even offering to handle the paperwork myself if they simply provided the necessary information. 3 days passed without a single response. My anxiety evolved into a persistent dread that followed me through my workdays and disrupted my sleep. The dream of having my family at my wedding was beginning to crumble, and I couldn't for the life of me understand why. With just over a month until our wedding, the silence from my family became deafening, oppressive. Determined to resolve whatever issues were causing their hesitation, I decided to make a surprise visit to Milwaukee. I told my office I needed a personal day, booked a Friday morning flight, and texted my mother that I was coming to help finalize their travel plans. Her response came hours later. This weekend isn't good. Your father and I are very busy. The dismissal stung deeply, but I was beyond accepting vague excuses. I'll only need a couple of hours of your time, I replied, my fingers trembling slightly. It's important we get these details sorted out. I arrived at their house Friday afternoon, my rental car parked in the driveway. When my mother answered the door, her surprise seemed tinged with annoyance rather than pleasure. Sophia, I told you we're busy this weekend, she said, reluctantly stepping aside to let me in. The house looked different. Suitcases were visible in the hallway, and travel guides were scattered on the coffee table. None of them were for Hawaii. Are you going somewhere? I asked, picking up a guidebook for Paris. My mother snatched it from my hand. Just doing some research for a potential trip next year. My father emerged from his study, equally startled to see me. Sophia, what are you doing here? I explained about the urgent need to finalize their travel arrangements for the wedding, pulling out my laptop to show them the forms we needed to complete. About that, my father said, exchanging a loaded glance with my mother. We've been meaning to call you. There might be a problem with the dates. A cold, heavy feeling spread through my chest. What kind of problem? The wedding is in 5 weeks. They launched into a series of vague, flimsy explanations about work commitments, sudden health concerns, and conflicts with the children's school schedules. Each excuse sounded less convincing, more transparent than the last. Let me help you work through these issues, I pleaded, my voice thick with desperation. Whatever the problems are, we can solve them together. When they continued to hedge, to avoid, I made a bold offer. Let me help you with your passports. I can expedite the process if you haven't started yet. We have our passports, my father said sharply, then looked as if he instantly regretted the admission. You do? That's great, I said, confused by his reaction. When did you get them? Recently. My mother interjected too quickly. For future travel opportunities. Something wasn't adding up. If they had already obtained passports, why the reluctance to confirm the Hawaii trip? I asked if I could use their bathroom, but instead of going there, I quietly, stealthily, slipped into my father's study. His computer was still on. Email open. Subject lines about Paris itinerary and London hotel confirmation immediately caught my eye, hitting me like a physical blow. Before I could investigate further, my father appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of anger. What are you doing in here? Looking for a pen? I lied, moving away from the computer, my heart pounding. Dad, is there something you're not telling me about the wedding trip? His expression hardened, his eyes cold. You should go, Sophia. We'll call you next week to discuss everything. They practically pushed me out the door, my questions unanswered, my anxiety skyrocketing. As I drove to my hotel, my hands gripping the steering wheel, I called Heather, determined to get answers, to cut through the lies. Heather, what's going on with everyone? Mom and Dad are acting so strange about the wedding trip. My sister sounded incredibly uncomfortable. I really can't talk right now, Sophia. Bella has a recital. This will only take a minute. I insisted, my voice tight. Have Mom and Dad said anything to you about not coming to the wedding? After a long, agonizing pause, Heather sighed. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of this. You should talk to them directly. I just tried. They're avoiding the subject completely. And why do they have travel guides for Europe? I have to go, Heather said quickly, her voice laced with panic. Bella's about to perform. And she hung up. That night, in my hotel room, unable to sleep, my mind racing, I logged into the email account I had used to book my family's travel arrangements. I had shared the login information with my parents so they could access their itineraries. Scanning recent activity, I noticed several emails had been marked as read that I hadn't opened. One was a notification from the airline about a requested change to the reservations. With growing, sickening dread, I called the airline's customer service line. I'm checking on reservations under the name Hamilton. I explained to the representative, my voice barely a whisper. Has there been any request to change these bookings? After verifying my identity, the representative confirmed my deepest fears. Yes, there was a request to change the destination from Maui to Paris, but it couldn't be processed without additional payment for the fare difference. The request came through about 3 weeks ago. My blood ran cold. Paris. Not Maui. The exact same destination I had seen in the guidebook at my parents' house. The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house, determined to confront them with what I had discovered, to force them to look me in the eye. When no one answered the door, I used my old key to enter. The house was empty. The suitcases were gone. On the kitchen counter was a hastily scrawled note. Gone to Heather's for the weekend. Please lock up when you leave. I called Nathan, my voice shaking uncontrollably as I explained what I'd found, the betrayal so sharp it cut through me. They're planning a trip to Europe instead of coming to our wedding. I choked out, tears streaming down my face. They tried to use the tickets I bought them to change destinations. Nathan's voice was steady, calm, a desperately needed lifeline in my emotional storm. Come home, Sophia. We'll figure this out together. I changed my return flight to that afternoon. But before leaving, I made one last, necessary stop at Heather's house. Her car was in the driveway, alongside my parents'. When she answered the door, her expression, a mix of guilt and discomfort, confirmed what I already knew. You're all planning a trip to Europe during my wedding, aren't you? I asked, without preamble, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Heather's eyes darted away. It's complicated, Sophia. Explain it to me, then. I demanded, my voice rising. Help me understand how using the tickets I bought for my wedding to go to Europe instead is complicated. She reluctantly invited me inside where my parents sat at the dining room table, travel documents, bright brochures of European cities, spread before them. They looked up, startled and shamefaced. What is this? I demanded, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. I spent $32,000 to bring you all to my wedding, and you're using it for a European vacation instead? My mother recovered first, her voice weak. We were going to tell you, Sophia. We just couldn't find the right time. The right time, I said, my voice rising, my pain turning to fierce anger. Would have been before I spent my savings on your flights and accommodations. Why couldn't you just be honest with me? Hawaii doesn't make sense for us. My father argued, trying to sound reasonable, failing miserably. The kids would enjoy Europe more, and Heather's always wanted to see Paris. The implications of his statement hit me like a physical blow, slamming into my chest. And seeing me get married doesn't matter? The uncomfortable, ringing silence that followed was answer enough. Once again, Heather's desires, Heather's happiness, had taken precedence over my milestone event. We can't change the tickets anyway. My mother added, as if that resolved everything. The airline wouldn't let us without paying the difference. So, your plan was to just not show up to my wedding, without even telling me? The hurt was so deep, so profound, it left me breathless. No one responded. In that moment, surrounded by the family who had consistently, unapologetically chosen each other over me, I made a decision. A powerful, unyielding decision. Keep the tickets, I said quietly, my voice surprisingly steady. Consider them my last gift to you. But don't expect to be part of my life after this. I turned and walked out, ignoring their desperate, belated calls to come back and talk. There was nothing left to say. There was nothing left to talk about. On the flight back to New York, I grieved. Not for the lost money, no. I grieved for the family relationship I had spent decades trying to salvage, trying to mend, trying to force into something it would never be. The week before my wedding should have been filled with joyous anticipation, with light and excitement. Instead, I was dealing with the raw, emotional aftermath of my family's cruel betrayal. Nathan, my incredible Nathan, had been my rock, my unwavering anchor. He held me through tearful nights, whispering reassurances, reminding me that our marriage was about us, about our love, not about my family's approval. We're creating our own family now, he would say, gently wiping away my tears. One built on love and mutual respect. Despite his boundless support, I struggled, truly struggled, to focus on the last-minute wedding details. Jasmine, our wedding planner, had been incredibly understanding when I explained the situation, her voice full of genuine sympathy. Unfortunately, family disappointments are more common with destination weddings than people realize, she said. But we'll make adjustments to ensure your day is still absolutely perfect. We revised seating arrangements, adjusted our catering numbers. I tried desperately to focus on the positive. So many of our friends and Nathan's amazing family were still coming. Nearly 50 guests who genuinely, wholeheartedly wanted to celebrate with us. 6 days before we were scheduled to fly to Maui, as I was packing my wedding dress for shipping, my phone buzzed. A text message from my mother. Just wanted to let you know we're leaving for Europe tomorrow. Heather found incredible deals on additional activities. You're not worth seeing in a wedding dress anyway. Have a nice life. I stared at the message, unable to comprehend the sheer cruelty behind those words, the absolute venom. My hand shook so badly I dropped the phone. Nathan found me curled on the floor beside our bed, the wedding dress half-packed, a silent witness to my devastation. When I showed him the message, his face darkened with a raw, protective anger. That's inexcusable, he said, pulling me into his arms, holding me so tightly. No mother should ever say that to her daughter. What's wrong with me? I sobbed against his chest, the old, familiar question echoing in my mind. Why have they never loved me enough? Nothing is wrong with you, Nathan said firmly, his voice cutting through my self-doubt. Their inability to appreciate the amazing person you are reflects their limitations, not your worth. That evening, as I scrolled mindlessly through social media, trying desperately to distract myself, a notification appeared. Heather had tagged my parents in photos. With a cold, creeping sense of dread, I clicked on the images. And there they were, my parents and Heather's family, all of them smiling, beaming, in front of the Eiffel Tower. The caption read, Day 1 of our European adventure. So grateful for this incredible opportunity. #blessed #family vacation. The timestamp showed they had already left days earlier than they'd even bothered to tell me. They had lied. Even about their departure date. Seeing them, so carefree, so happy, beaming in Paris while I was utterly devastated, broken in New York, brought a fresh, agonizing wave of pain. Nathan found me staring at the photos, tears streaming silently down my face. Without a word, he took my phone and set it aside, then led me to our couch where he wrapped me in a soft blanket. I'm calling Dr. Matthews, he said, referring to my therapist. This warrants an emergency session. Dr. Matthews agreed to see me the very next morning. In her calm, comforting office, I poured out everything. From the childhood pattern of blatant favoritism to this final, crushing betrayal. What your family has done is a profound rejection, she acknowledged, her voice gentle but firm. But it's also an opportunity to finally free yourself from seeking approval you may never receive. Should we cancel the wedding? I asked, the question that had been lurking, tormenting me, in my mind. Dr. Matthews leaned forward. Do you want to marry Nathan? More than anything, I answered without hesitation, the truth echoing in my soul. Then don't let your family take that joy from you too, she said firmly. They've already taken enough. That afternoon, Nathan and I had a long, heartfelt conversation about proceeding with the wedding. We discussed postponing, simplifying, even eloping. In the end, we decided to move forward exactly as planned. This wedding is about our love and commitment. Nathan reminded me, his eyes full of certainty. Not about who sits in the audience. With renewed determination, I threw myself into the final preparations. Jasmine helped rearrange the ceremony layout to make the smaller guest count look intentional rather than like there were missing attendees. We reallocated some of the budget to enhance other elements of the wedding, upgrading the dinner menu and adding a spectacular fireworks display. 2 days before our departure, Nathan came home with an unexpected announcement, a mischievous glint in his eye. "I've invited a few additional guests," he said, looking slightly nervous. "I hope that's okay." "Who?" I asked, utterly surprised. "Remember Julian Sanders, the musician? We met at the charity gala last year? He's agreed to perform at our ceremony. And Margaret Chin from the Educational Foundation has also accepted. She's bringing her husband. Julian was a Grammy-winning pianist whose music I adored, and Margaret was a renowned philanthropist we had worked with on several charity projects. Both were people I admired greatly, but considered more professional acquaintances than close friends." "You invited celebrities to our wedding?" I asked, astonished, a bewildered laugh escaping my lips. Nathan just shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "I reached out, explaining the situation, how your family had abandoned you, and asked if they might help make our day special. They both responded immediately that they'd be honored to attend." Fresh tears filled my eyes, but this time, they were from overwhelming gratitude, from a joy I hadn't felt in weeks. "You did that for me? I'd do anything to see you smile on our wedding day," he said simply. As we finished packing that evening, I received an unexpected email. From my mother's sister, Aunt Patricia. She and my mother had been estranged for years due to some family dispute I never fully understood. "Sophia," the email read, "I heard about your wedding from a mutual friend. I know we haven't been close in recent years, but I would love to attend if that's possible. I've already booked my flight to Maui." I called her immediately, explaining the devastating situation with my parents and sister. Rather than being surprised, Patricia sighed deeply. "Your mother has always been jealous of others' happiness," she said, her voice laced with a knowing sadness. "Even as children, she couldn't stand it when attention wasn't on her. I'm not surprised she's passed that trait to Heather." Patricia's validation of my experience was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. For the first time, I felt like someone from my family truly saw the toxic dynamic I'd struggled with my entire life. "I would be honored to have you at my wedding," I told her, meaning every single word. "I'll be there," she promised, her voice firm. "And if you'd like, I'd be happy to take on any role your mother would have had." The night before our flight, I logged out of all social media accounts, determined not to torture myself with more photos of my family's self-serving European adventure. Instead, Nathan and I focused on our own journey, preparing to create memories that would form the strong, beautiful foundation of our marriage. As we fell asleep, nestled together, I realized that while the pain of my family's rejection was still raw, a tender bruise, it no longer threatened to overshadow the pure, profound joy of marrying the man I loved. Perhaps that, I thought, was the first, vital step toward healing. The morning of our wedding dawned with perfect Maui weather, clear skies, a gentle breeze rustling the palm trees outside our ocean view suite. As I sipped coffee on the balcony, watching early surfers catch waves, I felt an unexpected sense of calm. The hurt wasn't gone, no, but it had transformed into something quieter, a dull ache rather than the sharp, piercing pain of recent weeks. My bridal preparations were scheduled to begin at 10. With the ceremony at sunset, Nathan kissed me before heading to his separate preparation room where his brothers and father would join him. "Next time I see you," he whispered, his eyes shining with love, "you'll be walking down the aisle." My makeup artist and hairstylist arrived precisely on time, turning my suite into a serene, bustling bridal sanctuary. As they worked their magic, my college roommate Rachel and 2 close work friends arrived, champagne in hand, ready to help me prepare. "You look radiant," Rachel said, hugging me carefully to avoid disturbing the makeup artist's work. Nathan won't know what hit him. Jasmine appeared periodically, her calm demeanor a reassurance, to provide updates and ensure everything was running smoothly. During one visit, she pulled me aside with a mysterious smile. "Nathan has arranged some surprises for you," she whispered conspiratorially. "Just go with it and enjoy." Around noon, there was a gentle knock at the door. Jasmine answered it, then turned to me with a broad, knowing smile. Your first surprise is here. Aunt Patricia entered, looking elegant and radiant in a seafoam green dress that perfectly complemented our wedding colors. Behind her came a distinguished-looking man I didn't recognize. Sophia, Patricia said, embracing me warmly. You look absolutely beautiful. Her eyes, full of genuine affection, warmed my soul. I hope you don't mind, but I brought someone special to meet you. This is your Uncle David, my husband. I stared in shock. I'd never met David, having lost touch with Patricia during those long, painful years of estrangement. We've been married for 5 years. Patricia explained gently. I sent announcements, but I suspect your mother never shared that information. Another piece of family history deliberately kept from me. I welcomed David warmly, touched, profoundly moved, that they had both made the journey, that they had chosen to be there. There's something else, Patricia said, looking slightly nervous, a tiny tremor in her voice. I know this is unorthodox, but in the absence of your parents, would you consider allowing David and me to walk you down the aisle? We would be honored to stand in. Tears threatened to ruin my carefully applied makeup. I would love that, I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. As the afternoon progressed, my nerves settled into excited, joyful anticipation. My dress, a sleek column of ivory silk with delicate beading that caught the light like sea spray, fit perfectly. With my hair swept up in an elegant updo adorned with small white orchids, I felt more beautiful than I ever had in my entire life. An hour before the ceremony, Jasmine arrived with news that guests were beginning to gather on the beach. Everything is ready when you are, she assured me. And Nathan has one more surprise waiting. Curious, my heart thrumming with anticipation, I followed her to a small private courtyard where Julian Sanders, the acclaimed pianist, was setting up beside a magnificent white grand piano. Julian! I exclaimed, utterly surprised to see him before the ceremony. He stood and embraced me warmly. Nathan thought you might appreciate a private performance before walking down the aisle, to center yourself. For the next 20 minutes, Julian played soul-stirring compositions that seemed to speak directly to my heart, to soothe my soul. As the music washed over me, I felt the last remnants of bitterness about my family melt away, dissolving into the warm Hawaiian air. Today wasn't about who was missing. It was about who had chosen, with open hearts, to be present. When it was time, I made my way with Patricia and David to the ceremony location. Peeking from behind a decorative screen of tropical flowers, I could see our guests seated in white chairs on the golden sand, the vast Pacific Ocean providing a breathtaking, sparkling backdrop. The setting sun cast everything in a magical, golden glow. Nathan stood at the altar, handsome in his light gray suit, looking both nervous and utterly elated. Beside him were his brothers as groomsmen, and across from them stood my bridesmaids in flowing seafoam dresses. In the front row sat Nathan's parents, beaming with pride, their faces radiating pure joy. Beside them was Margaret Chin, the philanthropist, alongside several other high-profile guests I recognized from charity events. Julian had taken his place at the piano, ready to provide the ceremony music. Ready? Patricia asked, offering her arm alongside David's. I took a deep breath, my heart full, and nodded. As Julian began playing Pachelbel's Canon in D, we stepped onto the white runner that served as our aisle. Gasps and murmurs of appreciation rippled through the guests as they turned to see me. Nathan's face, as he watched me approach, was everything I could have ever hoped for, his eyes filling with tears of pure, unadulterated joy. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I was exactly where I was meant to be, surrounded by exactly the right people. The ceremony was magical in its simplicity and sincerity. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promising to support each other's dreams, to love honestly, and to choose each other every single day. When Nathan slipped the platinum band onto my finger, our hands clasped, as we turned to face them as a married couple, I was struck by the genuine, unreserved joy on every single face. These people, some blood relations, others chosen family, all shared in our happiness without reservation, without judgment. The reception exceeded even my highest expectations. Under a canopy of twinkling lights strung between swaying palm trees, we dined on exquisite local cuisine and danced to Julian's incredible live performance. Margaret Chin offered a surprise toast, speaking eloquently about the power of choosing one's family, and building a life on mutual respect and admiration. Sophia and Nathan, she concluded, raising her glass. May your marriage be defined, not by who is absent today, but by who chose to be present, and by the family you create together. Nathan's father also spoke, welcoming me to their family with such warmth, such genuine affection, that several guests wiped away tears. From the moment Nathan introduced you, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion, we knew you were special. Your intelligence, kindness, and strength impressed us immediately. Today, we don't just gain a daughter-in-law. We gain a daughter. Throughout the evening, Nathan rarely left my side, his hand often finding mine, as if to reassure himself that this was real, that this joy was ours. During a quiet moment between dances, he leaned close to my ear. Any regrets? He asked softly, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. I looked around at the joyful celebration, at the people who had traveled thousands of miles to witness our union, at the breathtaking beauty of our surroundings, and finally, at my husband's loving face. Not a single one, I answered truthfully, my heart overflowing. This is perfect. Later, our photographer pulled us aside to capture sunset portraits on the beach. As we posed against the spectacular Hawaiian sunset, I realized I felt lighter than I had in years. The heavy, crushing weight of seeking my family's approval had finally lifted, replaced by the profound, unshakable certainty that I was worthy of love exactly as I was. They're going to be incredible, the photographer assured us, reviewing some of the shots on her camera. These are the kind of photos people can't help but comment on. Nathan smiled at me knowingly. We had already discussed posting select wedding photos online, not out of spite, no, but as a genuine celebration of our joy. If my family happened to see them and realize what they had missed, well, so be it. As the night drew to a close, Nathan and I slipped away from the reception to walk barefoot along the moonlit beach. The sounds of our celebration faded behind us as we strolled hand in hand. Thank you, I said, stopping to face him, my eyes welling up with gratitude. For everything. For loving me, for creating this magical day, for showing me what family should truly be. Thank you for choosing me, he replied simply, his gaze tender. For trusting me with your heart. I promise to treasure it always. Under the vast Hawaiian sky, surrounded by the gentle, rhythmic whisper of waves, we sealed that promise with a kiss that felt like the beginning of absolutely everything. The morning after our wedding, Nathan and I awoke to sunrise streaming through the windows of our honeymoon suite. As we enjoyed breakfast on our private balcony, our photographer sent a preview of our wedding photos. They were breathtaking, capturing not just the visual beauty of the day, but the authentic, overflowing emotion and joy that had surrounded us. These are incredible, Nathan said, scrolling through the images. You look absolutely stunning. One photo in particular caught my attention. Nathan and I dancing, surrounded by Julian Sanders playing piano, with Margaret Chin and several other notable guests visible in the background. The golden sunset light gave everything an almost magical, ethereal quality. That one, I said, pointing. That's the one I want to share. With Nathan's encouragement, I crafted a simple post. The most perfect day with the most perfect man, surrounded by true friends and family. Thank you to everyone who made our wedding so special, especially Julian Sanders for the incredible music and Margaret Chin for your beautiful toast. #JustMarried, #Maui, #ChosenFamily. I hesitated only briefly before hitting post, then turned off notifications and set my phone aside. This day, this moment, was for us, not for monitoring reactions. We spent our first day as a married couple exploring Maui, snorkeling with sea turtles, and enjoying a romantic beachfront dinner. It wasn't until late that evening that I checked my phone again. The post had exploded with comments and likes, mostly from friends expressing joy and congratulations, but among the notifications were several missed calls and messages from my family. Heather had texted multiple times. Is that the Julian Sanders at your wedding? How do you know Margaret Chin? Why didn't you tell us important people would be there? My mother had left a voicemail, her tone dripping with artificial concern. Sophia, we're worried about you posting such exaggerated photos. People might get the wrong impression about your wedding. Call us when you can. My father's message was more direct, colder. You didn't need to make such a public spectacle. Very immature. I showed the messages to Nathan, who pulled me close. Are you okay? I considered the question carefully, searching my feelings, my heart. Actually, yes, I said, a faint smile playing on my lips. Their reactions are so predictable, it's almost funny. They're not upset about missing my wedding. They're upset about missing an opportunity to meet celebrities. What do you want to do? Nathan asked. Nothing, I decided, feeling a surge of power, of peace. They don't deserve a response. The next morning, I woke to more messages. Apparently, several mutual acquaintances had asked my parents about the wedding, having seen my photos online. Uncomfortable with admitting they had chosen a European vacation. Instead, they had crafted a convoluted narrative about health issues preventing travel. People are asking questions, my mother wrote. You're making us look bad. We need to coordinate our stories. For the first time, I felt completely unburdened by their manipulation, their desperate attempts to control. I showed Nathan the message and then deleted it without responding. They can coordinate whatever stories they want, I said, my voice firm and resolute. I'm done participating in their fiction. Our 10-day honeymoon became, truly, a healing journey. We explored Maui's hidden waterfalls, drove the breathtaking road to Hana, watched the sunrise from Haleakala volcano, and spent lazy afternoons on secluded, pristine beaches. Each day, I felt lighter, more present, more connected to Nathan and to my authentic self. On our last evening in Hawaii, sitting on the beach, watching another spectacular sunset paint the sky, Nathan asked, "What are you thinking about?" "How grateful I am," I answered honestly. If my family had come, I would have spent the entire time seeking their approval, trying to make sure they were enjoying themselves, worrying about their reactions. Their absence gave me the freedom to fully, completely experience our wedding. Nathan nodded thoughtfully, his arm around me. Sometimes the universe gives us what we need, not what we think we want. Returning to New York felt like coming home to a brand new life. We moved Nathan's remaining belongings into my apartment, which would be our home until we found a larger place. Unpacking our wedding gifts, carefully arranging photos from our honeymoon, we created a space that vibrantly reflected our shared journey, our new beginning. The first Tuesday after our return, I kept my regular appointment with Dr. Matthews. I brought wedding photos to share and recounted the entire experience, from the initial, searing pain of my family's betrayal to the surprising, profound peace I'd found in their absence. I've spent my entire life trying to earn their love, I explained, always believing that if I achieved enough, succeeded enough, gave enough, they would finally see me. Hawaii was my last attempt, and it cost me $32,000 to finally accept the truth, which is, Dr. Matthews prompted, her eyes kind, that nothing I do will ever be enough. I finished, my voice clear and steady. The problem was never me. It was always them and their limitations. And continuing to seek their approval would only hurt me, and potentially my marriage. Dr. Matthews smiled, a knowing, approving smile. That's an incredibly powerful realization. How do you want to move forward? With boundaries, I said decisively. I'm not cutting them off completely, but I'm no longer investing emotional energy in changing our relationship. I'll interact with them on my terms, when and if I choose to. Over the following weeks, my family continued their attempts to contact me. When I finally did answer a call from my mother, I was calm and direct. I understand you chose a European vacation over attending my wedding. That was your decision to make, but I won't pretend it didn't happen, and I won't help you save face with your friends. If you want a relationship with me moving forward, it will be with complete honesty and respect. My mother sputtered excuses and justifications, but I remained firm, unwavering. Those are my terms. Take some time to think about whether you can accept them. Similar conversations with my father and Heather established my new boundaries. They were predictably defensive, accusing me of being dramatic and unforgiving, but for once, their opinions didn't devastate me. They just didn't matter in the same way. Nathan and I settled into married life with joy and intention. We hosted dinner parties for friends, joined a couples book club, and began volunteering together at an educational foundation for underprivileged students. On weekends, we often visited Nathan's parents in Connecticut, where I was always welcomed with genuine, unreserved affection. 6 months after our wedding, Nathan's mother, Barbara, invited me for a private lunch during one of our visits. "I hope you don't mind," she said as we settled at a corner table in her favorite restaurant. "But I wanted to check in on how you're doing with your family situation." I appreciated her directness and genuine concern more than words could say. "Better than I ever expected," I answered truthfully, feeling a deep sense of peace. Setting boundaries has been incredibly freeing. They occasionally reach out, usually when they want something, or when relatives ask about me, but I no longer feel obligated to respond. Barbara nodded, her eyes warm. "I hope you know that, Thomas, and I consider you our daughter in every way that matters." Family isn't always about blood, Sophia. It's about who shows up, who supports you, who celebrates your joys and shares your sorrows. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you, I whispered, for showing me what family should be. A year after our wedding, Nathan and I celebrated our anniversary by returning to Maui, staying in the very same resort where we had married. Sitting on the beach where we had exchanged vows, we reflected on our journey. This year has taught me so much about what truly matters, I told Nathan, my hand intertwined with his. I spent so long chasing approval from people incapable of giving it, that I almost missed recognizing the genuine love that was right in front of me. I'm glad you finally saw it, Nathan said, squeezing my hand gently. You deserve every bit of it and more. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, I felt a profound, absolute sense of peace. The $32,000 I had spent on my family's non-attendance had been the most valuable investment of my entire life. It bought me freedom. Freedom from a lifetime of seeking validation where it would never, ever be found. In its place, I had discovered my own worth, independent of anyone else's recognition. I had found family and friends who showed up, in-laws who embraced me wholeheartedly, and most importantly, in the man beside me, who loved me exactly as I was. That evening, I posted a simple anniversary photo of us on the beach. Captioned, 1 year ago, I learned that sometimes the best family is the one you choose. Forever grateful for this man and the life we're building together.